Hello, everyone, and welcome in to crushthestreet.com. I'm Kenneth Amaduri, and I'm joined today with Keith Neumeyer. We're going to have a powerful interview today. And he's, as you know, he's the CEO and president of First Majestic Silver, chairman of First Mining Finance. He's a legend in the resource market, and First Mining Finance just released some amazing news, continuing to deliver value, and that's the kind of guy Keith is, and it's a pleasure for me to spotlight him here at Crush the Street. Keith, thanks for coming on the show with me today.
Well, Kenneth, it's great to chat with you again.
Keith, you know, gold has been tumbling as of the last day or so. Rough day in the market here for gold. We're just above 1,300, which is a good thing. It's a good thing 1,300 held. But I feel like we're having a Bitcoin $200 moment, and I'll explain what I mean by that. In 2015, Bitcoin traded in the $200 range almost the entire year, and nobody really cared about it, and it was disregarded. And now everybody cares about it. And I feel like gold and silver are in that $200 Bitcoin moment, not really being regarded. And I guess I want to ask you, what is it going to take for gold to go high on people's radars?
Well, you know, Kev, you never really know what the catalyst is going to be to change the market sentiment, but prices are driven by sentiment. You know, we all know that. You know, the Nasdaq's trading where it's trading because of sentiment. It's not really trading on value or the U.S. market as a whole. You know, pointing at what is going to change sentiment, I think is almost an impossibility. It's usually not just one thing. You know, we had gold rally, a nice rally. You know, it was gone up to almost 1,350 on all the Korean nonsense that was going on. And quite honestly, I don't like to see gold move for political events. I'd rather see move due to real fundamentals. More use, changes in the macroeconomic world, change in currencies and so on. But political events usually result in short-term, spikes in the price of gold. And I think if you look at the COMEX caught trader report on gold longs, I just looked at the report this morning, and it was the longest it's been in for a long time, like multi-years, the long position in gold right now. So, gold went from basically the mid-12s to the mid-13s. It almost moved almost $100. And you had all this fast money come into it, all these speculators, all these hedge funds, which just helped drive it. But of course, it's all fast money. It's weak hands. Those are the people you don't really want to be coming into the gold market, because they just drive it up or they drive it down. And when gold didn't continue, it's now correcting. So you get all these longs starting to liquidate. So how long that takes, could take a month, it could take a week. Where's the bottom? Well, who knows where the bottom is? I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, but, gold's going a lot higher. We're in a brand new gold bull market, which is going to affect, obviously, silver prices. People know that I'm, chairman of First Mining and CEO of First Majestic. Those companies will perform quite nicely. As this market resumes, it's bull trade, but things don't go straight up, and we don't want them to go straight up. I'd rather have slow, progressive moves over long periods of time, because that's what actually builds a very strong market.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's good points right there. So I guess I'm wondering, can we compare this to any other time in history? Obviously, you've been in this for many years, and you've seen a few cycles. Is what we're seeing today like anything else that you've seen in previous times, or are you expecting something completely different in the next 2 to 5 years?
I think history repeats itself. The action of 2014 to 2015, when the mining sector was in absolute devastation. Mining was almost a bad name. No one wanted to even think about the mining sector. It changed very quickly, obviously, when 2016 came along. But during that period of time, I correlate that to the late 90s, from 95 till 99 kind of time frame, or 98. This current market we're in right now looks to me very similar to the 2001 to 2003 time frame where we had the Nasdaq reaching all-time highs. It hit a high of 5,000 in 2000. It started to correct in 2001, 2002, and it lost 50% of its value over the next few years. And it didn't actually hit its old high of 5,000 until just recently this year. So it took almost 15 years for it to actually go back up to its previous high. And during that 15-year period, 12 of those years was actually a bull market in the resource sector. So, the resource sector, unfortunately, is almost a contrary to other markets. And as your listeners probably know, we're in an 8-year bull market for the U.S. Stock market, and it's already getting quite long, and you probably do need to see some of that money start to come out of that market and go into emerging markets, which are obviously also being negatively impacted by the rush of investment in U.S. equities, but also the metals. We've seen some glimmer of change. We're not back to the lows that we saw back in the early 2000s, but obviously we're a lot lower than we were in 2012. But nevertheless, I think we're in the inning one of the next bull market.
Keith, First Mining Finance a few months ago, had some selling pressure due to the GDXJ rebalancing. And, I actually haven't had the opportunity to do a public interview with you regarding that. So I'd like to update the readers and listeners on where the chips have settled and where we are as investors regarding this. And then I'd like to get into the exciting news that you guys have just had with First Mining Finance.
Yeah, that GDXJ thing, it's been a while now since that trade occurred. I think it was June 19th, if I recall correctly. But so it's been a few months. But the stock is still suffering a little bit. Partly due to the fact that the whole mining sector is not been doing particularly good over the last few months. But First Mining's off its lows, as well as First Majestic's obviously off its lows as well. They have improved over the last few weeks, but that was a big trade. 90 million shares went through the market that day, and a lot of that stock had to get retraded, because it did go into the wrong hands, or just maybe not the wrong hands, but it went into traders, went into weaker hands, and the stocks had a couple of rallies, and a lot of that stock has been distributed in stronger hands now. But that whole process takes a while, and I still think it's currently underway. But with the news that we're putting out over the next this recent news release, of course, which is huge, but over the next few months with other news, I think that we can look for improved market conditions.
So let's get into this news release here. First Mining Finance has just been on an absolute roll with continuing to deliver value. And we've kind of been with you since the beginning here, and you guys just keep continuing to deliver for investors. So let's get an update on that.
Well, sure. And thanks, Kenneth, for that comment as well. It's not always easy building a big company, and there's sometimes it feels like one step forward and two steps back. But we're a very focused team, and we've got a great portfolio. I think the best gold portfolio there is in the world, and we've got some of the biggest gold projects that are currently held by any junior, particularly where they're held. They're in a great jurisdiction of Eastern Canada, very, very mining friendly jurisdiction, a part of the world. And we've seen so many bad announcements coming out of many regions around the world, Guatemala, Tanzania, and other places and Brazil, where there's just, being a miner is just sometimes really not easy. And it's very important to have assets in good jurisdictions. And when I put together the First Mining portfolio, I was very, very focused on buying assets in good jurisdictions. And that's why we focus so much on Canada. And one of the biggest projects we bought was the Springpole project, which has been developed over the last 20 years. It's not an unknown project. It's fairly well known in the marketplace. It's actually probably the largest undeveloped gold project there is in Canada, and in one of the top, 5 probably in the entire world. So it's a big project, with just under 5 million ounces of gold. There was a PEA, a preliminary economic assessment, that came out in 2013, which was quite interesting. But based on the work we've been doing, kind of some drilling we did, and also some lab work and behind the scenes thing, and just changes in the process. We optimized some of the processes that were in the previous PEA, and we're just put out now, and your listeners can go find the news release. But Springpole has got a net present value, pre-tax net present value of $1.1 billion. That's US dollars. And on a post-tax net present value, it has a $792 million value. The market cap of First Mining is $313 million US, and here you've got one project that is valued at over 3 times the entire value of the company. This is a big asset, a big mine. It's going to be a 300,000 ounce producer of gold annually. It's got a nice long mine life with exploration upside. So it's a great asset.
Wow. Man, you just said it, $392 million market cap. I mean, you're on your way to building your third billion-dollar company, and maybe you've already touched on this, but obviously for investors who own the company, it's a rising tide that lifts all boats. If that happens, that's going to be a big deal for everyone, positioned in the company. And my final question to you regarding First Mining is, what do you see as a path to success for building, your third billion-dollar company?
Well, just continually doing what we're doing. Keep drilling and keep putting out these great reports. And you're putting out. This is this is our biggest project, the Springpole project, and this PEA we've been working on for about a year now. It's coming out at $1.1 billion in NPV with a 32% internal rate of return. These are massive numbers, and it takes a while for the market to absorb these types of things, and the market doesn't react instantly. And as we continually put out good news on other projects like Goldland, for example, we've drilled over 110 holes there and some very, very interesting intersections, and we're going to just keep drilling. We're going to drill, several more holes over the next 6 to 12 months, and just keep drilling, and that's going to lead to another resource estimate sometime later in 2018, and building more value. And we'll do the same thing. We're just going to repeat that whole strategy. Cameron, Hope Brook, Pitt, the Quebec assets, and as long as we just keep doing that and keep adding value and de-risking these assets, eventually the market starts to pay you for it. You just don't know when that's going to be, but we know we're doing the right thing. We've got a great group of people working hard every single day to build these assets out and de-risk them, and that's what we're very focused on, and eventually it'll pay off for shareholders.
Keith, I recently interviewed you at the Sprott Show in Vancouver, and we talked about silver and First Majestic. Obviously you're a big believer in silver as well. And let's talk about it. How did you originally get involved with silver? And in regards to First Majestic, was the intention from the beginning to always have it be a primary silver producer?
Well, it's a good question. The previous company I formed was a copper company, and I put that company together in 1992. And similar kind of thing. We were very focused in one region of the world and very focused on one metal. That was First Quantum Minerals, and myself and the team, ended up focusing on the copper belt, and started acquiring assets in the copper belt. And we were in production quite quickly. By 1997, we broke ground on our first mine. By 98, we're in production. I left a couple years later. I wasn't there for the big, huge run. The company went on to be an enormous success, even after I left. But today it's one of the largest copper companies in the world, and I look back at that experience as with great pride. And then I put together First Majestic Silver in 2002, and I was looking for a metal that had the same kind of supply-demand fundamentals as copper did. I'm a big believer in supply-demand. And I looked at the different metals, and I realized gold. There was sure a lot of players in gold, and there was very few players in silver. So I started looking at that metal quite closely and realized that the supply-demand fundamentals for silver were extremely robust, very unique, and in a market whereby we're consuming more and more silver every year, and that's not changing anytime soon. Particularly now that we're getting off oil and gas, and we're going green and building out all the new electrical infrastructure that we need to do, using other forms of electricity, which is going to consume enormous amounts of silver. And I envisioned this going back when I put the company together, and that's why I decided to put together a silver company. And I wanted to achieve, my primary goal was to achieve the creation of the purest silver company in the world, and I did accomplish that. And took maybe a little bit longer than I thought it was going to take. It's been 2017 is our 15th year in business, but it's not been all straight up. There's been lots of bumps along the way, but again, it comes down to the team. We've got a great team at First Mining. We've got a great team at First Majestic. It's not just all me doing it. I'm the guy kind of pushing things along, but it takes a lot of people working every day to build a big company, and that's what we've been able to do at First Majestic Silver, and that's what I'm hoping to do at First Mining Finance.
Keith, we've been covering cryptocurrencies a lot here at Crush the Street. And you know what? I can't help but see what's happening in Bitcoin and wonder if this is what we can expect, or at least apply watching the moves in Bitcoin to what we could potentially see in silver, or what we might potentially see in gold. Or correct me if I'm wrong, are they completely different markets, totally different scenarios? And as an investor, I shouldn't necessarily apply one to the other.
Yeah, it's the crypto area it's really tough. I can't say I understand it completely. I've got an investment in a company that just went public recently called Hive. They've got a very unique business plan, which I'm supporting. I think it's a good strategy. But it is obviously related to Bitcoin and some of the other cryptocurrencies, and I'm assuming that phenomenon is going to continue. But I do question whether it is the same investors that invest in gold, and I don't know the answer to that question. The positive for me with gold is I can hold it in my hand. It does make me slightly nervous that I can't hold a Bitcoin in my hand, but nevertheless, it sure has a ton of potential. There's obviously a lot of cryptocurrencies coming out, and they continually come out, and where it's all going to end up in the future is really hard to tell. But I think the blockchain is here to stay. It's just a matter of what it's going to look like, 5 or 10 years from now. I don't know. I don't have the answer to that, but I've heard people call it almost like the beginning of the new internet, or similar types of terms. And I'm not close enough to the industry. I'm not smart enough to really make that determination. But it's nice to be along the ride. And look, if the listeners or ourselves can make money in the space, then I think that's a good thing.
Absolutely. The manipulation that we are seeing in precious metals, I think has trickled over into the mining sector. And, it's been, especially with people buying at higher prices, some of these mining stocks, it feels like, buying when there's blood in the streets, and, there's discord, and there's just, the mining sector is a tough spot to be invested in. But as a contrarian investor, you have to be able to go in when there's blood in the streets, in the thick of times. And I just want to ask you, from your perspective, a seasoned investor, what can investors expect going through this, buying now without seeing those ridiculous gains? Because, going back to Bitcoin, people are more excited about buying Bitcoin at $4,000 or $5,000 than they were at buying it $200. And I just want to remind people that, now is still early in the moves for these mining stocks. And, what can they expect when things do start to turn around in a big way?
Yeah, Kenneth, I think you and I are on the same page. I hate chasing markets, and my nervousness towards cryptocurrencies or Bitcoin is just the fact that I see it up 10 times over a 12-month period, and that makes me nervous just because of the price, simply because of its price. Is it going to $100,000? Who knows? I've heard numbers like that bantied around. Maybe that's a possibility, but I like buying things when they're out of favor. I like buying things that are being sold at a discount, in my view. I like things that no one else wants to own. I like things that people talk badly about. I like things that are in distress, things that need new talent, new money, because that's what creates, assets that are cheap. And I like buying assets cheap. So I've done that throughout my career. I've done it, for three companies. First Quantum, I think we could say we did that quite successfully in the early days when I was there. And then First Majestic, for sure. We put together a portfolio that no one wanted. And in First Mining Finance, we put together a portfolio that, again, we picked up for pennies on the dollar of what was spent, and buying gold in the ground that we knew was there for less than $10 an ounce. You can't do these things today. To put together First Mining's portfolio today would be a near impossibility. You just couldn't do it. So, but still, we're off our highs. So, and this goes back to my earlier point about bull markets, is that, these bull markets don't go straight up. This bull market started, in January of 2016, and it ran up for 6 months. It went up, 300, 400, 500% in the case of First Majestic. It's corrected about 60% since then, but it's not back to its original lows. It's just kind of basing out here. And I quite like the action. I think this, 1250 to 1350 action in gold is great, because it's building a very, very solid base. And when this market moves, it's going to move like crazy. Like, we're going to see 1700 gold and probably new highs on gold within the next couple of years. But this next move, silver to 20, then 25, then beyond, that's going to happen very quickly. And it's when that move happens that it becomes very difficult to start buying some of these stocks. But investors need to be warned that you have to be prepared to buy a mining stock that is going to go lower the next day. If you think you're going to buy and maybe it's just not the mining sector, but I never expect to hit the low. When I make an investment in a company, I'm always expect it's going to go lower, and I prepare myself for that inevitability, because I know I'm not perfect. I'm not going to sell at the top, and I'm not going to buy at the bottom. So, I'm going to take a position in a well-run, company with good assets, and I'll be patient. And because because the alternative is you chase these things, and you're going to be chasing it, 30, 40, 50, 100% higher, and that's not the type of investor I am.
Wow. Well, sage words of wisdom there from Keith Neumeyer himself, CEO and president of First Majestic Silver, chairman of First Mining Finance. Keith, thanks for coming on Crush the Street today with me. And if people want to learn more about your companies, where would they go and what would they find?
Well, they can follow me on Twitter. It's just simple Keith _ Neumeyer. And I do tweet out the different happenings of the different companies I'm invested in, particular, of course, First Majestic and First Silver, but I also talk about other companies as well that some people know that I'm invested in, and people care to read my stuff. They can definitely go to my Twitter account, or just go to First Majestic's website. It's just www.firstmajestic.com, or First Mining Finance's website, just www.firstminingfinance.com. The investor relations individuals, you've got Derek Iwanaka at First Mining. He's always happy to take your call, and Todd Anthony, VP of Investor Relations at First Majestic, is always there and available for calls as well.